One Championship is returning to the Impact Arena in Bangkok on Friday, January 24th for One 170. Wasn't planning on making a video today, but as is often the case, One Championship decided to drop this news on us. And so I thought I would get a quick video out to chat about these two fights that we've got as the headliners for this card coming up at the start of January. Bear in mind, we still don't know the details for what December will bring. We know that 1169, of course, is coming up November 8th. That is going to be at Lumpini Stadium. That was moved from Atlanta. Video up already about that on this channel. All of that good stuff. But here we have it, 170. We have the main event and co-main event, as you can see here on One Championship's Instagram. The main event will be Tawanchai defending his one featherweight Muay Thai World Championship in a rematch with Superbon. And in the co-main event, one bantamweight Muay Thai World Champion Superlek will defend his title against Scotland's Nico Carrillo. Let's talk about the... Which way round do I want to do this? Let's talk about the main event first, and I'll get to why we're doing that in a minute. So, of course, how did this fight come together? Tawanchai defended his title against Joe Nato at 1167 in June this year. I was going to say last year. We're not in January just yet. Getting ahead of myself there. It was a close fight. A lot of people thought that Joe Nato did enough to win. They then announced that Tawanchai would be fighting Joe Nato for a third time at 1169. Like I said, November 8th at Lumpini Stadium. That fight then got cancelled when they made the decision to move that card from Atlanta to Lumpini, but that is not the reason it got cancelled. The reason it got cancelled was they booked Joe Nato versus Superbon for one Friday fights, which was confusing at the time until we found out that Tawanchai might be unable to make the original planned date of November 8th. And so they were going to do Joe Nato versus Superbon in the meantime to determine who would go on to face Tawanchai for the world title, which I felt was a little bit harsh on Joe Nato. I felt like he did enough in that second fight with Tawanchai to justify a trilogy fight, regardless of whether he is going to beat Superbon or not. He did not beat Superbon. He was stopped in the first round following a devastating elbow, a reoccurring theme of this episode or video or whatever you want to call it. Devastating elbows in the first round. Tawanchai will now be facing Superbon, who of course is also the interim one featherweight kickboxing world champion. I would imagine soon to be the full champion, but another topic for another day. Superbon is fantastic. He looked great against Joe Nato. These guys first fought back at One Friday Fights 46 in December of last year, December of 2023. It was a great fight that went 5 rounds. I thought Tawanchai did enough to win that one, but it was a great fight nonetheless. So I do expect another great fight here. I am excited to watch it. So no complaints from that point of view. Superbon, like I said, looked great against Smoking Joe. Definitely deserves this fight off the back of that performance. I personally think Tawanchai will win it again. I just think he... You know, in kickboxing, I would definitely pick Superbon to beat him because we've seen Tawanchai cross over into kickboxing and not really develop, like make that transition as well as maybe you would hope he would. Superbon, I would say, is probably the better of the two at switching, but I would still say that Tawanchai probably has an edge here in Muay Thai, but we will find out at the Impact Arena. Also worth pointing out that this card, with it being a big numbered event, is going to air at Asian prime time, which is delightful news for me here in the UK because it means it will air at like lunchtime-ish rather than having to stay up until the early hours of the morning for the American time zone. So I'm very happy about that at least. But I'm sure that's great for the fans as well that are going to be in Bangkok to go and watch this. And, you know, you've got two Thais taking each other on there in the main event, which is always going to be a big draw. Interesting, you know, initially when I saw this poster, I thought, that's a bit strange, actually, that Superlek versus Nico isn't the main event. In my opinion, we'll talk more about this in a second. I think that's one of the best fights One Championship could possibly put together right now. But I would imagine, you know, Superlek is definitely a rising name at the moment. I would say across, you know, the whole world, but especially Thailand, he is definitely getting up there with those kind of top names in the promotion. Maybe Tawanchai and Superbon are a little bit higher than him right now, and the fact that you've got the two of them fighting each other. First fight was great, like I said. That makes sense for the billing, so I'm not complaining about that. But when I first saw the poster, I was a bit like, whoa, co-main event is Superlek versus Nico Carrillo, because like I said, when you talk about the fights that One Championship currently have put together for the schedule right now, end of 2024 going into 2025, I think this is the best of them. Nico Carrillo challenging Superlek for the one bantamweight Muay Thai World Championship. Superlek, of course, defended the title, or won the title, I should say, earlier this year. Head's gone there. Superlek won the title at 1168 in Denver. The numbers, they are confusing my brain today. Superlek looked phenomenal. As I said, reoccurring theme of this video. First round knockout via an elbow over Jonathan Haggerty in Denver at the Ball Arena to become the Bantamweight Muay Thai World Champion. He is also the Flyweight Kickboxing World Champion, just to add some more confusion into the mix. But he will be defending the Bantamweight Muay Thai title here for the first time against Scotland's Nico Carrillo, the King of the North, who is on a tear in one championship. He's won, is it 4 fights or 3 fights? You know what? It's been actually some time since I looked at Nico's record, and I've confused myself here. I'm pretty sure it's 4. What are we gambling on here? It's 4, right? Third fight was Nongo, and then fourth fight was Simon Pet. Yeah, fourth fight was Simon Pet. 4 fights, 4 knockouts in one championship. All of them, 3 in a row in 2023, and then 1 in 2024 against Simon Pet. I think this fight is so interesting for multiple reasons. I did a video ahead of 1168 talking about whether Haggerty would be able to beat Superlek by looking back at their first fight that happened many, many years ago. And the conclusion that I kind of drew from that, obviously it didn't end up playing into the fight whatsoever at 1168 because Superlek ended it in a minute. But Haggerty didn't have the size or the power to really cause Superlek issues the first time they fought, not to mention, experience level and all of that stuff. But those were kind of the main things I picked out from watching that first fight back. And I thought, well, Haggerty now has that. Now that he's up at bantamweight, he's been able to fill out in that frame a little bit. Superlek was going up to bantamweight for the first time. Not that he was ever a small flyweight by any means. He definitely needed to move up to bantamweight. At one stage, he was having some issues with making that for sure, making the flyweight limit, that is. And the power, right? Haggerty had that power. He showed that in the knockouts over Nongo and Fabricio Andrade and Felipe Lobo. Like I said, it didn't factor into the fight. He didn't get to really showcase any of that because he got stopped very early on. But that, I think, is what makes this matchup so interesting, is when you look at the archetypes of these two guys. If you were going to try and find a guy who has a certain style who might be able to beat Superlek, I think Nico Carrillo would be the guy, because he isn't as technical as Superlek. Superlek is one of the best strikers in the world. I would say he is probably the best striker in one championship right now. Maybe you can make the argument for Chingiz Alazov, but he's not really active. It doesn't really look like he wants to be in one championship, so I would give it to Superlek right now. But Nico kind of, we've seen him lose fights. I thought that Nongo started really well against him in their fight. I thought that Simon Pet was doing a good job against him as well. But it's the power and the finishing ability of Nico Carrillo. Of course, he gets accused of being a weight bully or whatever. I don't personally read too much into that. Believe me, a lot of people miss weight in one championship. Nico Carrillo is doing it without missing weight and whilst passing his hydration test. I don't think he is the person that you need to throw that at right now. Clearly, he is doing the right things to make sure he passes those. I'm going to take that off screen for a sec. You guys get the idea, right? But yeah, I think Nico's power and his ability to finish fights could end up being a really crucial aspect of this matchup, right? He isn't going to go strike for strike, I think, with Superlek. I don't think anyone is, if we're going to throw that kind of talking point at him. But the difference with Nico is that he doesn't need to do that to win the fight. He doesn't need to go, he can afford to land 1 strike for every 5 that Superlek lands. Look at 1165, where Superlek went up against Takeru. Superlek, I thought, fought brilliantly in that fight, but there was a period where it looked like Takeru was going to get back into it. He had Superlek hurt. I'm not saying the fight is going to play out the same way. Takeru and Nico Carrillo are vastly different human beings and martial artists, but Nico Carrillo will not let Superlek off the hook in those moments. You look at the way they just pursued Simon Pet once he had him hurt, and then it just lands devastating knockouts. I think this co-main event is absolutely fantastic. I have no idea which way it will go. I think this is it was hard to call Superlek and Rodtang. I was pretty confident that Superlek would beat Takeru, and Contorni, and I was leaning fairly significantly towards him for the Haggerty fight. This one, I genuinely think there is real jeopardy of Superlek losing this fight, because I just think that, you know, it's so hard for anyone to beat Superlek skill for skill, and Nico Carrillo is one of the guys in this division, probably the best guy in this division in terms of kind of negating that. And just, he only needs one shot to win this fight. And he has a very good chance of landing it, considering how big and fast he is. That is something that doesn't get spoken about enough with Nico Carrillo, that he is also a very good technical striker. Even if he is incredibly powerful. And I think that will be an issue for Superlek. But we will find out at 170, Friday, January 24th at the Impact Arena in Bangkok, Asian prime time. Thank you so much, One Championship, for making that the case. Thank you for watching this video. I apologize, it's a little bit rough around the edges. Like I said, didn't know this announcement was coming out today. Trying to fit this video in between my regular work schedule has been stressful, but I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will see you on Monday for the One Report, where I'm sure we will talk about this and more. But until then, peace.